Gaga Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Game gremlins come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Game gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen.
Summer says hello.
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen.
Agate says hey
Game
everyone.
gremlins on the scene.
Benjamin is in the house.
Welcome.
Gaga Grumps says summer in the house.
Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcoming guys.
Gaga Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. It's your warm up.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Aggie in the house.
Game gremlins on the scene. Game gremlins on the scene.
Summer says Grumps SSM already in the live, no need to share it to me.
Now tap that screen. Tap it.
Gaga Grumps
that
says
screen. Yeah,
treasure box
tap
up if you need a coin for
Game
your daily
gremlins
heart.
come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it.
Grumps says welcome
Yeah,
one,
tap it.
welcome all.
Let's
Good to
see
have you
those
back.
team stickers flow. Game
Gaga
gremlins
Grumps
on the
says
scene.
level up for summer coming once we're settled in.
Now tap that screen.
Handy says hello.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Aggie.
Now tap that screen.
Benjamin is in the house.
Grumps says that summer is already 4:02. You likely fall asleep any
Game
moment.
gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says Handy in the house.
Lincoln Davies says it Gaga and Grumps fireworks for her.
Summer says at Grumpsy am tired.
Gaga Grumps says how goes it peeps.
Grumps says it's summer C. Told you so.
Gaga Grumps says get those taps in. Game starts at 10k.
Summer says it Grumps, I have actually been exhausted the last few weeks.
Gaga Grumps says hey Lincoln, yes I'm looking forward to my fireworks.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Anna in the house, welcome back.
Agate says you're the sweetest live creator. Can I call you grandma?
Gaga Grumps says my grandkids call me Gaga lol.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Aggie says it Gaga and Grumps lol.
Grumps says it's summer, yeah. Spring knocks the elderly off their feet.
We would be honored
Anna says
if
at
you would
Aggie
join
Eats
us.
for real lol. Summer says, Gaga, if I leave the live Jana, I've fallen asleep.
Grump says at Christ our beast, get out of here with your obvious scam.
Gaga Grumps says haha okay Summer.
We would be honored.
Aggie says
if
it
you would
keeps
join
kicking me
us.
off.
Summer says at Aggie, tell it to stop.
Gaga Grumps says are you tapping yourself out Aggie?
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says local rivals in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart handy.
Aggie says nope. I was texting and kicked me.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart Summer.
Benjamin is in the house.
Summer says the amount of times you have to click that button Gaga.
We would be honored if you would join us. We would be honored if you would join
Gaga
us.
Grumps says Jay's bits in the house.
We would be honored if you would join us. We would be honored if you would join
Grump
us.
says at Mate well done.
Gaga Grumps says Marvel's in the house.
Summer says, when am I getting my level up song?
Gaga Grumps says always mad button pressing at the start lol.
No audio Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says get your taps in game starts at 10k. Gaga Grumps says as soon as I don't need to be pressing the button Summer lol. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart
Benjamin is in
jokes.
the house.
Grump says at Jennifer Baker higher.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says wrist hit button. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart Marvel.
Summer says scared the life out of me.
Gaga Grumps says Jennifer in the house thanks for doing your daily heart.
Summer says at Trin hush.
Grump says I was wondering if he'd missed a song request.
Elle says how is everyone?
Gaga Grumps says L in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
Grumps says at Trin never.
Gaga
Grumps says
Grumps
song
says
request
thanks
has
for the
been
shout
put in.
outs, Aggie.
Summer says that Trin never start W audio to many vowels.
Gaga Grumps says I seem to have summoned a request though, lol.
Grumps says off we are.
It's a L level up. I guessed it wrong, you guessed it right. Now here we are, another height. If support was
Level up.
This level's ours.
Gaga Grumps says get your taps in game starts at 10k.
Green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle.
Aggie Eats says log me out of my account now.
Support came in, guess it snap. Level unlocked, shout out chat.
Summer says at Agid's restarter app.
New fandom level, streak still alive. Wordle solved and you helped me fry. Tomorrow we guess same time.
Gaga
same
Grumps
chat,
says
same
ouch, Aggie.
brilliant brains. Remember that.
Gaga Grumps says okay, I've had a minute to breath, so.
Aggie says it's some it now.
Summer says at Aggie it's alright.
Gaga Grumps says a quick segue for this. Level up in the room for.
Eggy says, do you mind if I come back in 1 hour? I'm pretty busy at the tomb.
Aggie Eats says time asterisk.
Gaga Grumps says no problem, Aggie, you need to do you.
Aggie says that Gaga and Grumps okay. Thanks.
Aggie Eats says shout out to Gaga.
Marvelista says 19k.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for leveling up in the room, Summer.
Marvelous the Best says Dan K.
Summer says TTS so slow.
Gaga Grumps says TTS has to go off, it cannot cope as usual.
Grumps says at V no.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says who is ready to Wordle with Gaga.
Grumps says spamming gets you nowhere, apart from a timeout perhaps.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Grumps says it's Sophia Davis higher.
Gaga Grumps says thanks Robin.
Grumps says at V it starts when it starts.
Gaga Grumps says gotta kick Tifinity already.
Grumps says it's summer shirt fused today. Grumps says it's summer short.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. N.
Grumps says at scaffold Steve plus equals Saturday doesn't require decency.
Gaga Grumps says Steve in the house. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Steve. Gaga Grumps says okay guys tapping not typing. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Grumps says at scaffold Steve plus equals fair enough.
Like a thon, race to the top, like a thon, tap and don't stop, like a thon, who will be crowned like a thon, gremlin renowned like a thon, fingers on fire like a thon, gremlins don't tire like a thon, hearts beat flying like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with N please Grumps.
Grumps says north.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says creative in the house. Gaga Grumps says North you got. Gaga Grumps says now you can guess. Once. Don't spam.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout. Lost in the grid, can't figure it out.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Oh no.
Grump says audio. Grump says the game tried to leave.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says juice fits.
Grump says must be all the bickering annoying it.
Gaga Grumps says Green Eye and E moved into Wordle Street. Gaga Grumps says guys I won't tell you again. Add your guess once, it will be ignored if you add it more than once.
Grump says it Lucas. Where is there an I in teach? Grump says it VOK, bye.
Gaga Grumps says no Lucas you broke my spam rule. You don't get your word.
Grump says it Lucas. Need a coffee?
Gaga Grumps says slime works. Gaga Grumps says we added a green L. Gaga Grumps says I'm getting strict on the spam guys. You scroll guesses off my screen and I have to go searching for the best.
Grump says it Lucas. Too late, sorry, we just finished 20 minutes ago.
Gaga Grumps says Lucy read the effing room.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says random in the house.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Charlotte in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says Louis Cag, stop.
Grumps says it's summer, I like to play with things a while, before annihilation.
Gaga Grumps says pissed off at spammers as usual.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says one yes only or else.
Grumps says it's scaffold Steve plus equals they're all here for you.
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Don't let her lose. Grumps is on the buttons. Don't let him push yours. Are you ready to play?
Good game.
Let those stickers fly. Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Game, Gremlins, let's go. Game, Gremlins, let's go. Team Gaga, 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 Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you
Gaga Grumps says hi, trying to welcome.
Team Grumps, are you steady? Game, Gremlins, let's go.
Grumps says it's scaffold Steve plus equals especially when not decent. I get that.
Game, Gremlins, let's go. Game, Gremlins, let's go.
Gaga Grumps says doo for Gaga. Share the live chat for chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Grumps says it's some a typical woman.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Good game. 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 Good game.
Gaga Grumps says yes, summer. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Grumps says it's summer try. If you can't, you have.
Gaga Grumps says, what letter will the wheel choose?
We would be honored
Predictions in the chat
if
now.
you would join us.
Grump says it's some a typical woman, again.
Gaga Grumps says, might help if I had the wheel on lol. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. P.
Grump says, shall we invent the wheel?
Gaga Grumps says, no, I had accidentally turned the sauce off lol. Gaga Grumps says, Hannah on the nose.
Grump says at Hannah Pink Heart.
Gaga Grumps says, like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned, like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts be flying, like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says, want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says, I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says, your word starting with P, please creative.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says, Jillian in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says, place you got. Gaga Grumps says, wheel was on the nose. Gaga Grumps says, point fits. Gaga Grumps says no, change 8 letters wiped from the game.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Grumps says Puffy the Vampire Slayer.
Gaga Grumps says one guess only or you'll be muted for spamming.
Grumps says stop spamming G guys.
Nope.
Good game. Good game.
Thanks for the follow.
Go green.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Good game.
Will the fireworks fly?
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Random star, chosen by fate. Play your part, it's a live date. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Lacey in the house. Thanks for being the daily hot.
Get it in 3. It's do or die.
Go
Only
green.
in 3.
Grumps says at Ella, did you get to take him
A
home?
pretty sky. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with
Gaga Grumps says Ella in the house.
Wordle with Gaga.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says thanks Charlotte, it came with the caftan from TikTok shop. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Grumps says that Ella should have gotten one of those easy cook ones.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J.
Grumps says PSA. I shall apply the calming down button with extreme prejudice when detecting spamming.
Gaga Grumps says Charlotte E on the nose.
Welcome Handy to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Thanks for the follow.
Grumps says it Gary the Gecko no.
Tapping don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon. Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts be flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J, please Grumps. Gaga Grumps says welcome back summer.
Grumps says joust.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says joust you got. Gaga Grumps says yellow OS&T in need of homes.
Grumps says well done.
is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Shireen in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says Stomp fits. Gaga Grumps says T moved into number 2 S&O still homeless. Gaga Grumps says needs an S Maya.
Grumps says at Mayasfidget's pink heart needs an S. Grumps says I like ethos.
Gaga Grumps says ethos works.
Fireworks for Gaga. It's a performance night. Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within 3, so gifts
Gaga
explode
Grumps
with
says
glee.
Wordle in 3.
Fireworks for
Let's see
Gaga.
those fireworks in the chat.
Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Everything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day.
Grump says that Ella have a great evening.
Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Good game.
We would be honored
Fireworks for
if you would
Gaga.
join us.
Benjamin is in the house.
Level up.
Gaga Grumps says
Level
Sarah in the
up.
house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says a quick segue for this. Level up in the room for Grumps.
It's a L level up. I guessed it wrong, you guessed it right. Now here we
Gaga
are,
Grumps says in
another
purple.
high.
Level up.
Support was led by Cersei, you'd spell wow. This level's ours, come out with me now. Green,
Level up.
look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support came in, guess it snapped. Level unlocked, shout out chat.
Level up.
And a level streak still alive. Wordle solved and you helped me thrive. Tomorrow we guess same time, same chat, same brilliant brains. Remember that.
Level up.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says he won't even take family pics lol. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Grump says him as hairy as the profile image suggests.
Gaga Grumps says lol. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says he's Santa. Gaga Grumps says thank you Shireen.
Grump says that Seren not Seren wouldn't be the first ones.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. L.
No audio, Gaga. No audio.
Gaga Grumps says oh, a request in the house.
No audio, Gaga. No audio, Gaga. People drop them in the chat. Think they're clever, but they ain't.
Grumps says it's Seren, not Serenit, in the early stages of being considered.
No as you either. No audio, Gaga. All those vowels are to blame. Extra guesses. Risk losing the
Grumps
game.
says it's summer.
All we cheer is no audio, Gaga. No as you either. No audio, Gaga.
Grumps says it's Seren, not Seren. I do have 2 Santa coats.
Gaga Grumps says is it a jump scare lol? Gaga Grumps says I used to pimp him out at Christmas. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be
Gaga
crowned
Grumps says want to steal the starting
like a
word.
thon?
Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts beat flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Lights the fire. Lights the fire. Lights the fire.
Everybody get down! It's the freaking sniper!
Thanks for the follow.
Ha ha! Ha ha!
Gaga Grumps says Steve won the race and off Grumps runs with the crown. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with L please Grumps.
Grumps says lurid.
Gaga Grumps says lurid you got.
Grumps says it's scaffold Steve plus equals I am so very sorry.
Gaga Grumps says a green D moved into number 5 and a yellow L and I need homes.
Grumps says that summer sounds threatening.
Gaga Grumps says, do we have fireworks for Steve?
Grumps says at scaffold Steve plus equals thou shalt not lie to Santa.
Gaga Grumps says Wordle says no. Gaga Grumps says Fieldworks.
Fireworks for Gaga. It's a performance night. Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within
Gaga
three,
Grumps
so
says
get
Wordle in 3.
glee.
Let's see those fireworks in the chat.
Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga.
Good game.
Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says GG
Fireworks
Gremlins.
for Gaga.
Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it
Good
yet, grab
game.
your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Good game. Good game.
Grumps says it greater than Aggie eats less than welcome back.
Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says welcome back Aggie.
Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word. Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Grumps says that Keenan Shush is not allowed to.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with I please Aggie. Gaga Grumps says I am non-speaking. There is a pinned post on my page explaining. Gaga Grumps says inner you got.
Grumps says at Keenan that's too personal a personal question.
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says yellow E and R in need of homes and it's not a dreaded word. Gaga Grumps says relay fits. Gaga Grumps says E moved into number 2 and Y into 5. R still homeless.
Grumps says oh, I like Derby.
Gaga Grumps says Derby works. Gaga Grumps says so close. Gaga Grumps says Decry is in the grid.
Welcome, Gremlins, to the game grotto. Welcome, Gremlins, to the game grotto.
Welcome in, guys. Settle down.
Good game.
Grab your heartbeat. Share us round. Now tap that
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game. Good game.
Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Game Gremlins, come and let's go.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and protect them.
Game Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen.
Good game.
Now tap that screen.
Good game.
Grumps says at IDFW, welcome back.
Now tap that screen. Game Gremlins on the scene.
Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says yes Aggie, although when I wrote the song my plan was to have different game nights with
game.
Team Gaga and Grumps lol.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Good game.
Grumps says at IDFWU Saturday-ish, yourself.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says is it louder than normal?
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Jonah in the house thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says indeed Jonah. How goes it? Gaga Grumps says IDF in the house.
Grumps says at IDFWU everyone okay, hopefully.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. B. Gaga grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Grumps says at IDFWUO, nearly a centenarian.
Like-a-thon, race to the top, like-a-thon, tap and don't stop, like-a-thon, who will be crowned, like-a-thon, gremlin renowned, like-a-thon, fingers on fire, like-a-thon, gremlins don't tire, like-a-thon, hearts beat flying.
Gaga grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Grumps says Aggie engaged the afterburner.
Gaga grumps says your word starting with B, please Aggie. Gaga grumps says your word starting with B, please Grumps.
Grumps says brain, for wipeout.
Gaga grumps says brain you got. You just wanted me to say that, didn't you?
Grumps says bummer.
Gaga grumps says wipeout denied by 3 yellows. Gaga grumps says ranch fits. Gaga grumps says no change. Gaga grumps says no, I curate it like hard mode. Gaga grumps says angry works. Gaga grumps says anger it must be. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says always on the wrong side of the 50-50.
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says doobadoo to Gaga. Share the live chat for chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Thanks for the follow!
Grumps says perhaps a good rule would be to always use the choice you don't make. Grumps says at the random stuff that we do higher.
Gaga Grumps says cause I'm a sucker for alliteration and it went with Gaga and Grumps lol.
Grumps says at IDFW a dance.
Gaga Grumps says when you set up your fan club TT asks you to name your team. So Gremlins it was. Gaga Grumps says hey Ethan I'm good today.
Grumps says at IDFWU poll.
No audio, Gaga! No audio, Gaga!
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
People drop them in the chat.
Gaga Grumps says Yuto we have a request.
But they ain't all that. All we cheer is no
Grumps says at Ethan, X2, not ever.
no at you either. No audio, Gaga. All those vowels are to blame. Extra guesses, risk losing the game. All we cheer is no audio, Gaga. No at you either. No audio, Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says and that is what makes it bad Eton.
Grumps says at Ethan, X2, sailing close to a timeout now.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. S.
Grump says studio.
Gaga Grumps says yes, finish this at 6. We'll be back on around 10.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Grump says at IDFWU they make brilliant earphones.
Like-a-thon, race to the top, like-a-thon, tap and don't stop, like-a-thon, who will be crowned, like-a-thon, gremlin renowned, like-a-thon, fingers on fire, like-a-thon, gremlins don't tire, like-a-thon, hearts be flying, like-a-thon, gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with S, please creative. Gaga Grumps says that's okay, Anna. It's only me testing my Wordle live game. Not a full show like this on. Gaga Grumps says saute you got. Gaga Grumps says wheel on the nose. Gaga Grumps says yes, I made a game that takes guesses direct from chat automatically. Gaga Grumps says one guess only please Anna. Gaga Grumps says sewer fits. Gaga Grumps says we have a dreaded word. Gaga Grumps says sober for fireworks then options. Gaga Grumps says okay, what are the options? Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says one guess only chat. If you spam I ignore you.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Ra-ra-ra. Will the fireworks fly? A random star chosen by fate. Play a part. It's a live date. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Ra-ra-ra. Wordle with Gaga.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Brit in the house. Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
A pretty sky. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says it was aimed at David and Cider Idea. Gaga Grumps says
Good
I'm
game.
just cracking down cause I only have
Good
limited
game.
view and if spammers scroll off other
Good
guesses
game.
I have to go hunting. Gaga Grumps says and that costs more time. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Why? Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon. Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts be flying like a thon. Gremlins define.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with Y please Aggie.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Tommy in the house thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says I choose yeast.
Grumps says oops.
Gaga Grumps says yellow EA and S in need of homes. Gaga Grumps says lol thanks Grumps. Gaga Grumps says swear fits.
Nope.
Grump says it greater than Aggie eats less than needs an A.
Gaga Grumps says it's free for all after first word Ethan. As long as I like the word and it fits what we have. Gaga Grumps says and you don't spam. Gaga Grumps says we turn them green.
Grump says no tea for steak, guys.
Gaga Grumps says sneak works. Gaga Grumps says WTF is skiing.
Level up.
Grump says skein is a dagger.
Gaga Grumps says a Scottish dagger, like a SKE do or whatever they're called. Gaga Grumps says I didn't know it was a word tal. Would never have chosen it lol.
Grump says it tal and cow. You were not the first to say it though.
Gaga Grumps says did you level up Tommy?
Grump says at F1 Yappa 13 no.
Gaga Grumps says a quick segue for this.
Level
up in the room for Tommy.
It's a level up. I guessed it wrong, you guessed it right. Now here we are, another height. If support was letters, you'd spell wow. This level's ours, come out with me now. Green, green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support came in, guess this snap. Level unlocked, shout out chat.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for leveling up in the room, Tommy. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Welcome Lotus Charlotte coloring Lotus to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says we got one and he didn't guess it. Shame. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Q. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says wrong button lol. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned like a thon. Fingers on fire like a thon. Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts beat flying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with Q, please creative. Gaga Grumps says because it takes 700 to 1k to win.
is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Crystal in the house. Gaga Grumps says what was the cheeky pup? Is it new?
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says oh dear we have a request.
No audio Gaga. No audio Gaga. No audio Gaga. No audio Gaga. People drop them in the chat. Think they're clever, but they ain't all that. All we cheer is no audio Gaga. No ad you either. No audio Gaga. All those vowels are to blame. Extra guesses.
Grumps says it Crystal Hornet.
Risk of losing the game. All we cheer is no audio Gaga. No ad you either. No audio Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says did we have a word? Gaga Grumps says your word starting with QIDF. Gaga Grumps says creative gave it to you IDF.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says Queen is not going in because you spammed it. Simple as. Gaga Grumps says quirk you got.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the grid, can't figure it out. Oh no. Wipeout.
Gaga Grumps says
You
just
would be
checking because I
honored
can't see.
if you
Is
would
Cheeky
join
Papa
us.
Cooper greater than? Gaga Grumps says new Chihuahua. Even better.
Grump says it greater than Aggie eats less than no I or R.
Gaga Grumps says Nuia Chihuahua House of Chi is even better than Cooper. Gaga Grumps says Brum fits. Gaga Grumps says nearly a double. Gaga Grumps says ah my bad. Gaga Grumps says too distracted by cheeky pup lol. Gaga Grumps says no you for lunch. Gaga Grumps says do not be sorry for a chi lol. Gaga Grumps says 10th works. Gaga Grumps says E moved into number 2 and still homeless. Gaga Grumps says level up for Charlotte coming after this game. Gaga Grumps says no R for never. Gaga Grumps says 7 is in the grid. Gaga Grumps says no I still didn't see it. Gaga Grumps says danger zone all options in chat. Gaga Grumps says that's why I didn't see it's on my head. My old chi used to do that. Gaga Grumps says I can't trust a 5, I need to know. Gaga Grumps says oh okay anomic. There's no more boxes today, we're at end. Gaga Grumps says no Arthur learn. Gaga Grumps says see we now have 3 lemon, demon and pecan. Gaga Grumps says see you were wrong. Gaga Grumps says still not good enough for me in danger zone low. Gaga Grumps says anyway guys that brings today's Wordle with Gaga to an end. I'll be back at 10ish with the auto game. Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 PM UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga. Gaga Grumps says wait. Gaga Grumps says wasn't there a level up?
Level up.
Gaga Grumps says annoying isn't it churt still lol.
It's a L.
Gaga Grumps says a quick segue for this. Level up in the room for Charlotte.
It's a L,
Level
you
up.
guessed it wrong, you guessed it right. Now here we are, another height. If support was letters, you'd spell wow. This level's
Level
ours.
up.
Come out with me now. Green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support came in, guess it's now.
Level up.
Unlocked, shout out check. New fandom level, streak still alive.
Level up.
Wordle solved and you helped me fry. Tomorrow
Level
weekend,
up.
same time, same chat, same brilliant brains. Remember that.
Level up. Level up. Level up.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for leveling up in the room Charlotte. Gaga Grumps says and when Tickfinity gets back up and you're waiting for it to speak for you. Lol. Gaga Grumps says can I do yours tomorrow Splitsy? Or next time you're in remind me. Gaga Grumps says lol. Gaga Grumps says what can't you find? Gaga Grumps says oh you have to add yourself as an allowed user underneath the regular settings. Gaga Grumps says I'll message you. Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 PM UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga.